someone in Nubia pointed out in Kings, Where Do We Go From Here? He talks about the change that we must become, the change that we must become. And the whole parable of the sower and parable of the talents, Octavia Butler, God has changed. God has changed. Change is everything. Change is everything. Let's talk about the change and more about Star Child. And I love that you did it through the lens of her little girl self, because Octavia Butler's little girl self was a dark-skinned girl that America would not see as beautiful, that had dyslexia. She was a loner. She was in her own mind frame, doing things differently, seeing the world differently in herself and not seeing herself in the world. So she had to create a world where she existed. Mm-hmm. And I wonder how many little boys and girls today, it's a lot better, but is it though? Is it though? The little boys and girls get to see themselves and how much of the work of Octavia Butler allows them to. You held up a book, the picture of you and Octavia Butler, which is featured in Star Child, the biographical constellation of Octavia Estelle Butler. So if you want to see the picture, get the book. Show us that picture again.
Oh yeah, we were at I was studying with her at the Clarion West Science Fiction and Fantasy Writers Workshop in Seattle, Washington. And someone found out we share a birthday, and there we were, at a carrot cake in front of us. And I know you told them my age already, but we're exactly 30 years apart. And I do not write science fiction. I love reading it. However, I did not grow up during the same time as Octavia Butler and I love the genre. It is very difficult to write.
Yes. You have to be a master, which she was. Yeah. So first of all, Ibi, again, it's your birthday. Thank you for being here on your birthday. What are you doing today for your birthday?
Today, I decided to celebrate her. This book came out in January, and this is my opportunity to talk about her book and be in communion with other fans and other friends. So we're doing a couple of Zooms. Thank you for having me on your show. It is Octavia Butler's day, because when I sold this book, it took me a while to write it because there isn't a lot of information about her other than her own writing and her own papers. Just for anyone interested, her papers are housed in the Huntington Library in California. She had boxes and boxes of papers. And this is when people were not writing their novels on the laptop. She had notebooks and notes. And I saw her writing from the age of 10. She wrote her first novel at the age of 10, and it was about magical horses, and it's featured in Star Child. So this piece of loose leaf that you're seeing here is from 1957.
Wow.
I saw her journal entry on the day that Martin Luther King was assassinated. And I saw what she wrote. I saw what she had to say about the Black Panther Party for self-defense. She had something to say about Dr. Maulana Karenga, the founder of Kwanzaa, because they were right there in her neighborhood in Los Angeles, California. And we don't get to see that, but her papers are housed right there. And if you're a fan, she was a cerebral thinker, and she had big opinions about the world.
She was also a tall woman, and I feel like I connected with her around the height and size, because as a tall, big person growing up in America and Black, I have little beige skin privilege, which she didn't have. Mm-hmm. And so I'm just imagining her journey was a whole lot tougher than mine. And mine was pretty tough, being the biggest kid. There was a picture of me in the 4th grade and people didn't know who the teacher was. Oh. It was a big joke. It was sad, right. But it's okay. I grew into it.
Let me tell you this story. This is fascinating about her mother. But her mother was also very tall. And this little tidbit is in Star Child. Because her mother was so tall when she started kindergarten, they thought she was older than 5 years old, and they put her in the third grade with other kids her age. So here was this 5-year-old little girl being educated with 8-year-olds, and they labeled her as slow because of that. So her mother did not finish school because all the teachers thought she was slow when she was 3 years younger than the kids her height. They put her in a grade. And therefore, her mother did domestic work her entire life.
Oh
my God, the ruination
Right.
of humanity, just
And
in the
pushed her
stupidity.
daughter. And this is how Octavia's mother bought her a typewriter when Octavia was 13 years old. And the year was 1960. Everybody thought her mother was crazy for buying this little girl an expensive Remington typewriter, but she didn't want her daughter to be labeled as slow. And this is another way that we got the genius that is Octavia Butler.
That so much trauma and pain has to, lead to this greatness. Well, I guess that's what Earthseed is all about, what we plant in the ground in good soil. 866-801-8255. Ibi, before we go to the phones, how did you come to appreciate Octavia Butler? What was your entry point? What was the book? And having sat with her and studied with her, what did you learn from this woman?
Well, I was a writer. I was just in college writing, and I was part of the spoken word movement. And spoken word movement, it's a lot of us Black nerds who were reading comic books and science fiction. In 1999, The Matrix came out, and we were all about Afrofuturism. And within that community, you had Octavia Butler fans of her work. The Parable of the Sower had just come out, and Parable of Talents was coming out. She's an icon today, but 25 years ago, she was part of an underground movement of Black nerds who read comic books, we were already up on Wakanda and the Black Panther comics in the late 90s. So I was part of the geek squad, the Black, what they call blurreds now. And I was writing science fiction and trying my hand at it. And she taught a workshop in Seattle. I got into that workshop, very selective. There were 3 Black women out of 17, the most diverse class they've ever had. And she had attended the same workshop 30 years prior. And this is how, I came to know her. I reached out to her by phone back then. We could do that. And we had an email exchanges on AOL. I lost those emails. And it was just a fan. And we were part of that Black geek who revered her and continue to revere her to this day.
What did she teach you?
She taught me to write with emotion and details. And she also taught me that I could aspire to be like white men in terms of their success, not the whole be like a mediocre white man. She has in her journals that she wanted the success that Stephen King had. And she wasn't looking to other Black women. Either they were not there or she wanted to surpass them, but she had a list of 3 white men who she wanted to have her career like them. Never mind that she was a Black woman and it was the 60s or 70s. She's like, I want what they got. And that's the sort of stick-to-itiveness and ambition and drive that she had.
Let's take some calls. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Tanya.
Question. So what details do you remember about what she said writing with emotion entailed?
To make the characters feel real.
But how? Like, what's a technique she would describe?
I think it's voice. I remember her wanting clean language. She wasn't that type of literary prose that in the way that Toni Morrison writes, and not that that is any better or worse, it's different. Clean prose and go with the emotion. Cancers are emotional, and she needed the characters to feel fear, to feel what other people are feeling. She's an empath, and she wrote her characters as literal empaths. That was a science fiction feature in many of her books.
This one, sharers, they were sharers.
Yes, exactly. So it is short sentences, short, direct sentences that have an emotional impact for the reader, for the character, and it just jumps off the page.
Yes.